this is your Peace Prize. There is also a beautiful medal for you that you can wear everywhere you want to go.
I'm gonna wear it right now.
Okay, let me hold. Fantastic. Excellent.
Donnie got a medal. Donnie got a medal. Donald got a little Don got a medal. Do you see how happy he was? I got a medal. I'm going to put it on right now. My favorite conversation I had with people of my generation who look like me is they called younger generation, millennials and Gen Zers, the participation trophy generation, because we just gave her participation trophies. Who bought the trophies? It wasn't the kids. It wasn't your 7-year-old in the soccer team that bought the participation trophy. That was us. That was Donald Trump. And you got to love, that was FIFA. That was the, last time he walked off of the statue. I do guys remember he walked off the trophy. So I think they figured out, hey, look, this time to keep him from walking off with the trophy, we'll give him the FIFA Peace Prize, all new medal. And he got a medal to wear. What on earth are we doing? I mean, the Peace Prize, the soccer Peace Prize, for God's sake. They literally get the president of the United States a participation trophy with all of the things we've got going on in the world. But that's not all. My other favorite one this week, with a lot of things we have going on in the world, was this one. This is official video from your Department of Defense, folks.
3, 2, 1. You're gathered to celebrate the blessing of Christmas season here at the Pentagon. And a couple of months ago, my wife said, babe, President Trump brought Merry Christmas back. We're going to bring Christmas back to the Pentagon. Here, in a special way, in this city, in this courtyard, remember ones that are fighting to protect all of us. In this season, we think about them, we pray for them, we remember them, and may this tree honor them as well.
Babe, hey, babe, President Trump brought Merry Christmas back. We should have a Christmas. A totally real conversation that Pete Hegseth had with his third wife, talking about, Merry Christmas being okay now. Folks, I served in the military for 22 freaking years. I retired for the Pentagon, the home of the Department of Defense, and Christmas was never banned. But the thing was, we were raised as service members to respect everyone we're supposed to serve, every American. So if you said happy holidays, it's because there's something like 17 different holidays that occur this time of year across multiple religions and those who don't have religions. But in the end, it's not just the Christian holidays we celebrate as much as Pete Hegseth wants you to. I mean, what could they be distracted from? I mean, what's more than festive than people rappelling down the side of the Pentagon, or Santa, bringing gifts in an armored personnel vehicle with heavily armed elves? I mean, nothing says holiday like heavily armed elves. That's what this is. But I mean, what could they be distracting us from? Could it be the war crimes we're hearing about, where they actually smoked 2 men that were struggling for their lives on an overturned, half blown up boat? Or maybe the big con job, guys, because ever since the election on Tuesday, there's people freaking out. Donald is worried about a con job. Watch.
And, there's this fake narrative that the Democrats talk about, affordability. They just say the word. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. They just say it. Affordability. I inherited the worst inflation in history. There was no affordability. Nobody could afford anything. The prices were massively high. Do you remember when we took over eggs? You did a great job on that, Madam Secretary.
Okay, when they took over, inflation was normal, and it's actually gone up slightly since he took over. Yeah, there was high inflation after a global pandemic, and then we had the world's most successful economy coming out of the pandemic under the previous administration, Mr. Biden and his team, because he hired a whole bunch of competent people. Competent people. Remember those days when we had competent people in government? Oh man, what an ideal time for America. Competent people doing competent things. But now we've got the golden age of travel, so we dress up to go to Cleveland, and we've got affordability being a con job as people can't make their bills as we go into the holidays, as health insurance rates go up triple. I just read an article about a woman here in Missouri is expecting a 315% increase in health insurance. but it's a con job, according to the president. And of course, the most important thing we've got to worry about is saying Merry Christmas as we smoke innocent people possibly in the Caribbean and the Pacific. So look, this week's show, I wanted to start that, at least get a little of a laugh, because we got serious topics. This is a supersized show, you guys. We bring the heat on Friday nights. I hope you're watching the show, and I hope you're sharing with your friends, hitting like, subscribe, go to our Substack, all those things, because we've got a supersized cool show. Starting off with Bradley Tusk, who's an incredible man who's been deep in politics, but also a venture capitalist. But he's putting his money to work for democracy with mobile voting efforts. And then, of course, the big honor, I've got the president of the National Association, the NAACP. The NAACP is going to join us today. I'm very excited about having Derrick Johnson join us. It happens to be the 70th anniversary of the Montgomery boycott, so a big day in history. But we're going to talk about the results of the Tuesday election and this issue of affordability and what that means for working Americans. So there's a lot to talk about today. I'm excited. Put the distractions aside, focus on real issues. That's what we do here at On Democracy. I'm Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy with FP Wellman every Friday night, 7 p.m. on the Mindset Hour. Let's go on this incredible show. Thanks for joining me. And you're back. Hey, yeah. Always forget it's 15 seconds, not 30 seconds. Welcome. As I mentioned before the break, I am Fred Wellman, host of On Democracy, FP Wellman. You're right here on the Midas Touch Network on a Friday night. We just love having you guys here. I got a super show today. I mean, it's just, sometimes you get an embarrassment of riches in this job, and I've got an embarrassment of riches in this job this week. And we're starting off with something that's very important. And look, guys, as I mentioned the read-in, we've got the Tuesday election behind a special election. A lot of people are thinking about the midterms now, and there's so many issues around this. Who do we turn out? How do we do it? And of course, there's not a minute that goes by that I'm on the internet that somebody says, Fred, we're not even going to have an election. They're going to rig it. Elon Musk is going to trick it. It is I'm not going to say surrender monkeys. There's a lot of people who are nervous. So I want to have a great show where we talk about those issues, both what we face and how we may go about it. So I'm thrilled to have my first guest. Bradley Tusk is a former political operative. He worked in Democratic politics forever, deputy governor of Illinois. And then he found a new life as helping folks like Uber, FanDuel, and other gig economy companies break into the local now. Venture capitalist and a mobile voting advocate and investor. Bradley, welcome to the show. I'm thrilled to have you here, sir.
Yeah. Hey, Fred, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
This is great. So, everyone's worried about election security. There's been a backlash against voting machines on the right. Inaccessibility is the issue on the left. You've been working hard on that angle for a while now. Tell us a little bit about the idea of mobile voting and frame it for us. Frame it from the start. When you talk mobile voting, what do you mean?
Yeah. So like you said, I spent a long time working directly in Democratic politics and just kind of randomly ended up seeing the system from kind of every angle. I worked in city government, in state government, in federal government, legislative branch, executive branch. And the thing that I took away from it is every policy output is the result of a political input. And pretty much every politician makes every decision based on what it takes to win the next election. There are exceptions. I'm highly confident that you will be one if you win. But nonetheless, people like to keep their jobs, just like everyone in the private sector wants to keep their jobs. So do people in the office, right? It makes sense. And because of gerrymandering, the only election that typically matters is the primary. You happen to be one of the rare swing-ish districts that may not apply. But, the Times did a study of the 2024 general election, and they found that 92% of the congressional general elections, were decided by more than 5 points, and 93% of state legislative elections were decided by more than 5 points, which effectively means all of those races were predetermined in the primary. And primary turnout is really low. It's about 10 to 15%. And those voters tend to be either extremes or, even worse, special interests who really can move money and votes in low turnout elections. And so when we ask, why can't we solve the problem of, terrible things being shown on social media or guns, being totally rampant or whatever it is, it's because very small, powerful groups have outsized power, but their power is not just because of money. Their power is because in a world where so few people participate in the process, they're disproportionately influential. And the sad thing is, and I'm sure you're seeing this out on the campaign trail, Americans are not really that divided. Like, if you took a group of us and listed 20 issues, we could come to a solution on almost all of them that 80% of us could agree on, right? So
Yeah.
even abortion, like the third rail of politics, 2/3 of Americans believe that there should be the right to abortion. You can rightfully debate 10 weeks versus 20, whatever. That's a fair debate to have, fine. But overall, the problem isn't that Americans can't agree on anything. The problem is the only elections that matter are primaries, and so few people vote in primaries that as a result, we get this totally skewed government that's not delivering for the people.
That's exactly, and it's funny you say that. We here in Missouri, we have an initial petition process, and we put a lot of issues on the ballot. And sure enough, in my district, which is fairly red, actually, it passed by 60%. It is the shocking thing is you do talk to people, we do find that we agree on a lot more things than we don't agree on, but we are divided by but we are ruled by a very small, and it does come down to turnout, right? So let's talk about vote secure. I mean, why do you think this tech you're coming up with will over? So let's transition to that. So you take all of this. Well, I mean, you take all of this. You've venture capitalist. Let's be honest. You're a man who makes money.
Sure.
You decide to take your money and go into. I think we were talking in the intro or the pre-show about you can't make money in this. So you're not a very good. You're clearly not a very good friend. So
I had, in some ways, between that and then you were not chatting before, I also own an indie bookstore that loses.
Clearly, you're obsessed with
some ways, I'm a
money.
businessman. But
So why there? So we asked you.
the problem, I think, is that once you sort of talk about it, is really not that hard to grasp. So that question is, okay, well, what do you do about it? And the first thing that I did in tech, and the first thing I did that made me some money, was I ran the campaigns to legalize Uber all over the US.
Right.
And at the time, we were this very, very tiny tech startup, and taxi was a very powerful, very muscular industry, the kind of industry that had disproportionate influence because turnout is so low. So their campaign dollars and their donations went a long way. But we ended up beating them and winning because our customers really liked it. And we put the functionality for our customers to tell their elected officials, hey, I like this. Don't take it away from me, directly into the app. And we said to our customers, look, if you want to keep using Uber, you got to help us because we can't survive otherwise.
Right.
And millions of people did. So they, texted, tweeted, email, call, whatever they wanted through the app. Their elected officials, typically in our case, it was city council members and mayors. And we won in every single market in the country. And at some point, it finally hits me like, the same people doing this probably don't even know the name of the city council member they're calling, right? They've never voted in a state senate primary. But we just made it really easy. We put it on their phones. Their behavior changed. So what if they could vote this way? And so I started the mobile voting project, which is, to be clear, is totally philanthropic, in 2017. And the first thing we did was test the hypothesis. And so we funded elections in 7 different states, red and blue, where either deployed military or people with disabilities were able to vote in real elections on their phones. And of course, the answer is what you would expect. You put something on people's phones, you make it easier. They do it, right? No one's surprised by that. So then the next question became, okay, what we had worked fine. We used the existing tech on the market, but it was still for pretty small pilots, right? 2,000 soldiers from West Virginia, 3,000 people with disabilities in Oregon. And if we want to take power away from the special interests and the extremes and move it more to the middle, you got to get turnout up. And the only way to do that is to meet the people where they are, which is on their phones. And it's got to be a system that it really is highly secure. And stop me if I'm getting too technical, but the code has to be what's called open source, because part of the problem that we had with the pilots was the companies doing it were businesses. And they were like, we're not giving our proprietary code away to everybody else. And I get it. But because of that, there was a little bit of distrust. It didn't really matter because the pilots were so small, no one really cared. But, if you were doing it at scale, it would have been a problem. And because no company was going to be like, oh, I'll just spend 8 figures building tech and then give it away. Somebody else, I think there was. Right. Now, the reality is it should be the U.S. government, not me, but they're not doing it. And I was like, fuck it, I'll do it. So we spent 5 years building mobile voting tech. And the way it works would be you'd go on the App Store, you would download, probably in your case, the St. Louis County Board of Elections app. And the first thing is, okay, is Fred really a registered voter here in St. Louis County? You put in your info, fine. Now, is Fred really Fred? So first thing is multi-factor authentications. That's just, when you forget your password, they send you got a code, you put it in, same thing here. Next thing is biometric screening. So it's just the same way that you open your phone now, right? Take a scan of your face. Okay, now we know Fred's really Fred. We've put that issue to bed, so they can't claim fraud, whatever, right? Can't claim that. Ballot's now up on your screen, and the ballot's just meant to be as easy as possible. Whenever you're ready to hit submit, 3 things happen. 1, the ballot's encrypted. 2, it's anonymized. And 3, you get a tracking code. Goes back to the Board of Elections, and they air gap it, which just means they take it offline. So once your ballot is no longer connected to the internet, then they decrypt it. A paper copy of your ballot is printed out. That gets mixed in with all the other ballots. The paper copy is what's scanned. You can see from the tracking code that your ballot was received, printed, tabulated, so on. And then, like I said, the underlying code itself is open source. In fact, it's already public and online. So GitHub is the global repository of open source code. So about 3 weeks ago, we finally finished this project, and we posted the code to GitHub. So I don't even own it anymore. It's just the world owns it now. It's out there, and anybody can use it. So now I'm at phase 3, which is why we asked to come on here, and the really tricky part, which is we have to start legalizing it so that people can vote. Like if we think about your race, I think you're going to win anyway. But if people could vote on their phones, your odds would go up a lot more, right? Simply because I know that your message resonates. The question is, will the people with whom it resonates actually show up? Right. We know they have a phone. We're at like 97% penetration, right? So that's not the question. And so are there people for whom they don't go to vote, but while they're waiting for their coffee, while they're in their car, whatever it is, would they open an app and press a few buttons? Yeah, I think they would. So we announced a few weeks ago that Anchorage, Alaska is the first jurisdiction in America to do this. So they have municipal elections in April, and anyone in Anchorage can vote in those elections if they want on their phone. It doesn't change the other ways to vote. There's still whatever you have, mail, in person, whatever. But it's another option. And then we're going to start running legislation next year in a bunch of different states that would allow cities and counties in those states to opt in if they want to. They don't have to, and only to offer it for local elections. So we figure we'll start at the local level, see how it works, make adjustments, then state government, then eventually federal government. And so that's where we are. But the reason that I asked to come on is I'm making this shit up as I go along. Like I said, but it wasn't.
You're a shitty capitalist.
That's true. I know. My mixed advisors are like, you're out of your mind.
But it's funny. It sounds so cruel, but I occasionally taunt my kids, and I will send them some, like, on the rare occasions where we have like a really good article about mobile voting or a really good event, I'll send it to them and say, hey, this was the money you would have inherited. It's going to this instead. But look, I'm a first generation American. I didn't grow up with that much money. I worked in government forever. I made government salaries. So to me, like, the point of having and making money, and I've been lucky in active venture capital, is to use it for the stuff that matters to me. And this is what matters to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the keys, this isn't new though, right? Other countries have used movement. Right? That I think people don't understand that, right? I mean, where other people use them?
So a good example is Estonia. So Estonia is a really funny place. I went there in June for the first time ever. And look, it's very far, so I'm not advocating that anyone just hop on a plane and go to Estonia. It's not
probably I hear, and not this time, this time here.
Like, I was there in June, and they're like, "You're here for the 2 nice days of the year."
Yeah, exactly.
It's a funny place because Tallinn is this very well-preserved medieval city, and yet the people, when Estonia broke off from the Soviet Union and became their own country, the people running it had a really brilliant idea, which was, look, we want to distinguish ourselves, so why don't we try to become the most digitally advanced society in the world, and they actually did it. So voting and every other form of civic engagement obligation, you name it, can be done online. And so they started online voting in like 2005, I think. And so they've been at it for a long time. It works really well. And it takes time to build. So like they said, in year one, 1.3% of people who could vote online did. Now, a majority of people vote online. So it takes some time to build up, but it works really well. And they have much higher participation. And the thing that to me was the most meaningful stat that I learned in the time that I was there is they were like us before this, which meant in their national elections, people would turn out. So like in the US, the only election that does not have a turnout problem is the presidential. So you get about 66% turnout, but then everything else is abysmal. I mean, where I live in New York City, city council primary turnout, 6%, right? And in many ways, local government impacts your life more than anything else.
In every way, yeah. Almost every way there is.
And yet people just don't participate. They complain, but they don't participate. To me, the greatest thing that I learned was once people could vote online, they just became regular voters. And now they don't really distinguish between a national election or local election. Like, oh, there's an election today. All I got to do is press. They're already online. It's not like they have to go, do something different. And they just click from one site to another, cast their ballot, go back to whatever they were doing. And as a result, participation is much higher. And that makes them a much more productive, effective society.
Yeah, and look, there's pushback, right? I mean, obviously, especially on our side, on the Republican side right now, that, oh my God, we should go to paper ballots and, only voting on election day. I mean, how do you address those kind of, I see it, right? Even in the news.
Pushback from kind of three different categories, and one of which is sort of on our side, and I find it a little shameful. So the first one is Trump. Somehow he has not yet noticed mobile voting, so he hasn't criticized it. I'm just waiting for the post on Truth Social, but hasn't had yet. That's obvious. And it's why the legislation that we're going to run is in blue states. It's not because I only want to do this in blue states. It's because I only have a chance of passing it right now in blue states. Like, I'd love to do it in Missouri, but, not going to be an option to that. So that's one group. Two would be, there is a group of, on the left, sort of, they consider themselves good government advocates. So groups like Citizens Action, Verified Voting, the Brennan Center. But ironically, they are totally aligned with Trump. Only in-person paper ballots. And they're kind of like the anti-vaxxers of voting. And so that's another group. And the third, and this is going to be the hardest one, is all of those special interests who like things the way they are, right? So
right. That's it right there.
So there was a congressman from Western New York named Chris Jacobs. And a couple of years ago, there was a mass shooting at a supermarket in Buffalo. 10 people died. And Jacobs was not just a Republican, like a MAGA guy, right? But he's a human being. And at the press conference, he was shaken. And they just said, like, we can't keep going like this. We got to change something. The next day, happened to be like a few months before his reelect, the Republican Party and the Conservative Party pulled him from the line, and his career was over. And it's because he dared to say, let's do something about this. And the reason why is, in a world with 10% turnout in that district, the NRA reigned supreme. And as a result, once they said, get rid of them, that was it. But if turnout were just forget about 80, just 30, right? Then if you look at, because I'm, part of the Bloomberg world, I'm familiar with the work that Every Town for Gun Safety does. And when you look at their polling, most people, including the vast majority of Republicans, say, like, you shouldn't be able to just walk into a store and walk out with an assault rifle. Reasonable. You confiscate everyone's guns. But, these two things are not mutually exclusive. But when you have 10% turnout, the 10% that say, yeah, everyone should be armed to the teeth at all times, the only ones who count. And as a result, someone like Chris Jacobs loses the seat. So overall, those types of groups, like the NRA is a really good example, are going to oppose us. So it's going to be a really hard fight. And the only way that we're going to win is by building a massive grassroots movement. So there are groups that are naturally inclined towards us. So deployed military and their families, people with disabilities, the civil rights community. So Martin Luther King III, Stacey Abrams, Reverend Sharpton, are all supporters because they say this is the best anti-voter suppression tool out there, because when you line up, they find an excuse to turn you away if they can. When you're at home on your phone in your living room, no one knows what the color of your finger is, right? And so you press a button, you're good. And then obviously Gen Z. So we just brought in some of Mr. Beast people to help us on the digital side.
There you go. All right, there you go.
Yeah. And look, it's going to be hard, but you know, I've been at this for 8 years now. I've put in over $20 million of my own money. Like I said, it's totally philanthropic. And at the moments when I get down about it, and that happens because it's really hard, what I try to remind myself is, if you look at every major right that has been won in American history, women's right to vote, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, same-sex marriage, Americans with Disabilities Act, the status quo never wanted to do it, right? They were always against it, but enough people stood up loud enough and long enough, and they demanded it, and eventually it got done, and the world changed as a result. So I'm under no illusions that it'll be easy, but I know that if the people who are listening and watching this right now are willing to say, hey, I want to be part of that change, together we can do it. And so, you know, I'm here humbly asking people to just help us however they can.
Let's get to that, because I always like to lead. It's a good place to segue into. Is like, so that's the thing with the Modest Mighty. Our audience is well known for being part of things. With that, exactly. So what can they do? What's the best way?
Mobilevoting.org can show you everything you need. If you happen to have any money to spare and times are tight, so I'm not expecting that, but if you do, we'd love help. But honestly, even more important than a $50 donation is the willingness to just be involved, to reach out to elected officials, to email them, text them, whatever it is, and say, when there's live legislation in whatever state, hey, you really need to do this. Because if they feel enough pressure, they'll do it, right? But if they can get away with not doing it, that's what they'll do. And so what I really just need is people to lend their voice.
There you go. And we're pretty damn good at that these days. And I think there's an energy, right? I mean, we had our No King's Day protests, 2 of them here. And the second one, we had a massive thunderstorm, lightning bolts hitting the damn ground. And we still had 7,000 people on the thunderstorms. There is certainly an energy right now, I think, for change. Totally. Do you sense that as well? I mean, we just had these elections. I mean, you feel that?
I mean, these are both pretty liberal places, but on 2 of the No King's Days, one of them I was in Seattle and one I was here in Manhattan. But so I get that I'm not exactly in like the heartland in either of those places, but I've been in politics for over 30 years now. So I feel like I have a pretty good sense of like what's real and what's AstroTurf, this was real, right? Or for example, we just had a mayoral election here in New York City. Mondami won. And so I got a lot of shit from the business community because on the night of the primary, I put out a statement saying he's going to be the next mayor. You may not like him, but if you live here and if you love this city, I was born in Brooklyn. I've raised my kids here. My employees are here. I love New York. You want the mayor, whoever it is, to be good at their job, regardless if it's your politics.
A job.
Right.
Just do the job.
And I said, so therefore, I'm going to support him. I'm going to help him however I can. And we've been talking ever since. And so far, he's been great. And doesn't mean he and I are going to agree on every single issue. I'm a business person. Literally, the word capitalist is in my job title, venture capitalist. But you know what the job of the mayor is? Make sure that the trash gets picked up. Make sure the water that comes through the tap is clean. Make sure the light goes from green to red. And anything we can do, I want to do. And by the way, one thing Zoran that I really like is because he's so young, he's not afraid of technology. So whether it's mobile voting, which he's a big supporter of, and I'm grateful to him for that, or for example, and for any of the people, watching might notice, when you're in New York City next time, just look around and you will see scaffolding everywhere, right? Absolutely everywhere. And the problem with it is, I talked to Alvin Bragg, who's our DA here in Manhattan, about it. And I said, Alvin, is there more violent crime under scaffolding? And we were having dinner, and he said, honestly, I don't know. Let me come back to you. So, and then he calls me back a few days later, and he said, yeah, turns out there is. And so Alvin and I and a few other people worked on legislation in the city council that really tried to limit the scaffolding by doubling the length of time between inspections and cutting the time for inspections in half. Good. We passed the bill. But the next step, and this is why I'm so excited in some ways about Zoran, is you know what would inspect buildings without any scaffolding? Drones. Pretty easy, right? And I think if the mayor were 78, and they'd be nervous. So I was like, fuck yeah, why would we do it?
I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would say, there is a receptiveness towards technology. But ultimately, getting back to your question, when something is real and palpable and tangible, and when it's artificial, this is real.
There you go. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. So I'll put it back up again. Mobilevoting.org is the place to go. And we've got a mission to help. And I do agree. I think we're at a point now that when you say 97% penetration, and I always think of those who can't get out, right? It's disabled. It's when I was working in the Marjorie Taylor Greene election with Marcus Flowers in Georgia, the election board of Georgia in one county closed 5 of 7 polling places.
Yeah.
Which meant there were stories about like a black man an older gentleman in his 70s who'd lived the same farmstead his whole life. There's no bus. He would walk to the local store and it's like, he can no longer vote. Okay. There's no Uber in Carter County, whatever, and they're just, but he's got a damn phone, and so we've got to,
that's why the civil, MLK III lives in Atlanta. Stacey Abrams obviously does. Christine Reed, who was the mayor of Atlanta, like, that's why, interestingly, so much of the civil rights support we're getting is from people in Georgia, because they're like the epicenter of what you're talking about.
It's a civil rights issue. And when you see things like Duffy talking about going back to the golden era, what they really mean is when we didn't see those people, and that means those people not voting as well. So Brad, I appreciate you coming on here. This has been
thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And everyone watching and listening, I really appreciate you just giving me a chance to make my case.
Yeah. And we'll put all the stuff in the blurb too. And I appreciate it. So thanks. Good luck. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
I appreciate it.
All right, sir. Talk to you soon. Well, what a great interview. Bradley is brilliant. And that's what good leadership means in a capitalist society, is folks like Bradley want to put their money where their minds are and where their hearts are. And so I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of an honor to interview Bradley Tusk. I'm a fan, and it's good to hear what we can do. Look, we've got work. You guys have a mission assignment. This is something we can do. So that's mobilevoting.org. And so like I told you, we had a supersized show, right? So we have a supersized show. And so when you get a call from the president, actually the NAACP, that they want to talk about Tuesday's election results, do you know what you do? You put them on the show. So I'm thrilled. We'll be welcoming you in a second. Right now, let's talk to our sponsors. Again, we have great sponsors between Dupe and POS Debt. I stand by my sponsors. So let's hear from our sponsors, then we'll come on back. We're going to talk to Derrick Johnson. Hey guys, you know me, I've never hidden the challenge that I had in this life. I got mobilized in 9/11, same time my wife lost her job. Later I lost my small business during the pandemic. It's hard. And so many times I wish I could get a fresh, clean start, but it's almost impossible today. It's always the same system. The banks win, you pay, fees, calls pile up monthly, and it's unless you fight back. So PDS Debt has already helped hundreds of thousands cut their debt, put money back in their pockets, and not the banks. Whether you're struggling with credit cards, personal loans, or medical bills, like so many Americans today, PDS Debt has custom options to help you get out of debt. They go beyond the numbers to understand your unique financial situation and to craft a personalized plan designed just for you. Now, there's no minimum credit score required. They're here to help you save money and pay off your debt faster and start putting money back where it belongs, in your pocket, which so many of us need right now. Look, and I wouldn't offer this service. I didn't do the research. The PDS Debt is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They've boast thousands of 5-star reviews on Google. They hold a 5-star rating on Trustpilot, and those matter. And it's because PDS Debt has helped hundreds of thousands of people get out of debt. This is a process I would have used if I could have at the time when I faced my challenges. Every month you wait because it costs you more in interest and fees. So the best time to start, was yesterday, I think. And the second best is right now. So that's why I'm excited. Don't wait another month. Don't wait another minute. Take back control of your life in 30 seconds. Get your free personalized assessment and the best option for you at pdsdebt.com/Fred. That's pdsdebt.com/Fred. One more time, it's on the screen. Check it out. See if they can help you. It's pdsdebt.com/Fred for your free assessment. Good luck. Happy holidays, and thanks. You guys, I know I told you about Duke.com for a few weeks now, and I love this site. And now that I'm doing the holiday shopping for my kids and grandkids, it's saving me so much pain. I say this because I know you have had the experience where you found the perfect gift for your bestie online and your kids, and the sticker shock reminds you it's out of reach for your already stretched to their breaking point wallet, right? And that's why I use Duke.com. It's simple. Just type Duke.com / for any product URL, and Dupe instantly shows you similar and more affordable alternatives. It's perfect for finding the best deals for your holiday shopping this year. And these aren't those like knockoffs you see on some questionable corners of your town and the internet. I've been to those places. The truth is, most of these products you see online, from furniture to fashion to gadgets, are all mass produced in the same factories. Brands just slap on different labels and markups. Dupe finds those same pieces for way less. So you're not going to overpay for just a name. That styling quarter zip, perfect desk, that comfy chair, Dupe finds them or something nearly identical for, well, a fraction of the price. So it's no wonder, frankly, that Dupe has gone viral on TikTok, which I spend a lot of time on these days. Millions of people already use it to save thousands on furniture and decor and clothes, sometimes 60, 80%. And it's all completely free to use. That's why I like it the most. So this holiday season, Dupe is giving away 1 million Dupe points. And you can turn those points straight into gift cards. And here's how it works. You earn Dupe points by shopping with Dupe. No payment, no catch. Just search the products you want, save money, rack up points. And if you want more, you could share Dupe with your friends. And they save you earn points. And that means more gift cards for both of you. So here's the kicker. For a limited time, the first 10,000 people who go to Dupe.com / Fred, you see the screen, will get 500 Dupe points instantly. So they're redeemable for gift cards. There's no catch. Spots are limited. Don't wait. That's Dupe.com / Fred for 500 free Dupe points today. You can use those Dupe points and get gift cards. Make the most of all of your holiday shopping this year. So try it out. I tell you, you won't regret it. Just go to Dupe.com / Fred. As seen on the screen. I appreciate you guys. I hope you have merry, merry holidays. Try it out. Thanks. Thanks to our sponsors. We get the best sponsors, and I appreciate you supporting our sponsors. You know, I take them to heart if they're here, so I appreciate that. Look, I told you we have an embarrassment of riches this week. Okay, this is how this show works. When you get one good guest, you get two good guests, you get important conversations. Of course, this one's really important. President Derrick Johnson serves as the 19th president of the NAACP, CEO as well. He's held this since October 2017. He is a longtime civil rights activist. I could list his whole bio, but welcome, President Johnson. It's great to have you back, sir, or have you here for the first time. And thanks for joining us here on Democracy and the Midas Touch Network.
No, I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, it is quite a week. I mean, you know, I appreciate you joining me, especially today, sir. I'm honored to have you on today, which is the 70th anniversary of the Montgomery bus boycotts as well. It is such an important milestone in civil rights history. Yet here we still are fighting. You know, I mean, I guess the dream would be your role doesn't need to exist anymore, does it? I guess the question I ask you is, how's your blood pressure doing lately? I mean, you still in the fight, aren't you?
Well, absolutely. My pressure is okay. I have learned to pace myself and operate from a standard of no high highs, no low lows, just be consistently in the middle, because you can never determine what life is going to pitch you.
Yeah. So Tuesday elections, you know, were shocking to a lot of folks, with Afton bans nearly closing that 22-point gap in Tennessee. But there's other elections that happened that are even more significant for voters of color and all Americans. Tell us what you saw on Tuesday coming out of that election. What does that mean to you, your partners at the NAACP, and frankly, all Americans of color?
Well, last year in November, we recognized the harm this administration was going to have on our democracy and on American people. We also acknowledged the tool of othering they were using based on race and gender, or you have it. But in doing that, knowing that it's only a tool, the policies that was going to come out of this administration will impact everyone. And so this year's election is a reflection of that, whether it's farmers in Nebraska or what we witnessed in that outside of Nashville, or any election, that Americans are being impacted by negative policy. I call it policy violence. When you do a radical shift of wealth from the average everyday Americans, and you transfer that wealth up to the richest individuals on the globe, and you masquerade it as if it's the fault of DEI or immigrants or women or LGBTQIA, that facade can only happen but so long before people begin to realize that the cuts in you name the program wasn't about those things or those peoples or those communities. It was about me, my neighborhood, my community, my family, my well-being.
Yeah, and it's infuriating to see it. One of the things that set me off with a lot of passion and anger was the arguments over the big billionaire bill, I call it, where they actually smeared America. I mean, the disrespect that so many of them in DC have for average working Americans, people who are trying to just make ends meet, to create this false 27-year-old male who's laying around playing video games, getting free healthcare. That's not who's getting healthcare. That's not who's getting food SNAP benefits, is it? It's working people for the most part in it.
And unfortunately, as a result of the budget reconciliation that has yet to happen, many Americans are going to walk into the 1st of January with an insurance bill that will be triple or more this year's cost. And it's unfortunate that the big grab is a grift. It's a big
It
grift
is.
that
It's
we
a
are
it's a money
witnessing in
grab.
this
Yeah.
country. And people are distracted with othering when in fact we have more in common than we have that we should be disagreeing about.
Yeah, and when we go to that, as you look at those election results, I mean, we saw what, a 13-point shift in Tennessee. You saw key races, mayorships flipped in a number of places in Mississippi. In other words, even go back to the November election, where I mean, the Mississippi supermajority got broken. I mean, who would have thought you could break the supermajorities in a state like that, where people are speaking up? As you look at those elections, what's the message you're hearing? Like, as we go into the midterms, obviously we're staring at the midterms now. I think we're clear now. There's not going to be any more major special elections, but we'll look at the midterms now. What lessons are you guys drawing from these elections? I mean, what are you hearing people say with that?
Well, keep the main thing the main thing. This is about economic hardship. This is about policy violence, and highlight how this administration's public policy priorities is not for people, it's for corporate profit and individual gain. And we got to stay right there. We cannot get distracted with the bells and whistles that they throw out there. It's Friday, so I suspect there's going to be some big occurrence to distract the American public, because every Thursday, Friday, it happens, and we spend all weekend and Monday responding to the crisis as they continue to undermine democracy and create additional policy violence.
Yeah, and I think policy violence is a great way to describe what we're talking about. This is an assault on many people's rights. It's assault on our economic well-being, to divide us. I mean, I was just looking at some numbers yesterday. 67% or more of Americans live paycheck to paycheck now. We're not even talking middle class, lower class, upper class. I mean, we're talking about working Americans and the other 10% at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's harm to our senior citizens with some of the changes that's going to with Medicaid and Medicare. Is harm to our young people in terms of seeking to abolish the Department of Education. Is harm to those who work hard every day that corporate America can live off of. They don't pay them enough, and yet they qualify for TANF benefits, and benefits are being cut. It's harm for those who simply are suffering through food insecurity, and you cut programs to kind of alleviate food insecurity. We are falling behind as a nation, because this is a nation that are leaving its citizens behind because they don't care. And unfortunately, when we can move away from the distractions and focus on those policymakers, corporate interests, and high wealth individuals who are creating this storm, we will see a big difference on election night as we turn the corner for November, and any special election they may pop up.
Yeah, and we're seeing it now, right? We're seeing these results as they're frustrating. You look at Virginia, look at New Jersey, a lot of left blue arrows. People are looking for a different answer right now, and they're not getting it, and they're frustrated. But at the same time, we did just have last night, the Supreme Court is going to let these gerrymandered districts in Texas stand. Those were a direct assault on persons of color, right? I mean, what are you guys seeing there?
Well, it was our lawsuit that went to the Supreme Court, and
Right.
unfortunately,
Yes, sir.
the Supreme Court decision is contradictory at best. It's saying that the election is too soon to change the districts, but the district really wasn't changed, because you can still run under the existing districts. The work Texas will have to do to implement these new districts is the harm that they're speaking of, but yet they say you have to use a new district. It's contradictory at best. Thankful that California proceeded in the way it did. We're looking at now Virginia is about to proceed in the way it did. In fact, we filed a lawsuit in Missouri with the unconstitutional, based on the state's constitution, that it doesn't give authority to do mid-cycle redistricting. It's almost like a redistricting Game of Thrones. One state moved, the other state moved. And for us as an organization, we're playing whack-a-mole. We file a lawsuit over here. We have to organize people over there. We have to speak and educate communities in another state, also that we can ensure that voters are selecting elected officials as opposed to elected officials trying to choose which voters would elect them.
Yeah, and that's the fight we're having here. For me as a Missourian, I do live in the St. Louis area, but over in the Kansas City side, you see Emmanuel Cleaver's district get carved up 3 ways. But what was radical and shocking that some of us who understand the history of Missouri, and obviously you know that Missouri, I'm sure you know the history, that this has been the epicenter of racism and race issues before we were a country. I mean, I was shocked to learn, I don't know if you know this, but they actually recruited the hunters, the awful people, the mercenaries, to go to Florida and murder the Seminole Indians from St. Louis. I mean, the history here is so difficult for those who have learned it. Heck, I actually got desegregated, I believe it or not, because my school was all white. And when Brown v. Board of Education passed, I got bused to a more mixed school. So even for a kid who looks like me, we've lived with this. And to see them use Troost Avenue, for those who don't live here, Troost Avenue is the red line of Kansas City. Between the east of Troost along the Missouri River was the black district, obviously the one that was segregated. To the west was, or the east, excuse me, was the white district. The Republican new map sent from Washington used Troost Avenue and sent people of color in downtown Kansas City to be represented by a congressman that goes all the way to the Arkansas border. I mean, it's naked, isn't it? I mean, it's right there for any fool to see, isn't it?
Well, Missouri and Indiana have always been known as up south for African Americans. We recognize that although it's considered the Midwest, there's a lot of embedded mentality of white Southerners in those states. In fact, Indiana had per capita the highest concentration of Klan membership. Missouri is close behind them. And so we're not surprised what's happening in Missouri, but it's unfortunate that we have a federal judiciary that will allow some of these things to take place. Equal protection under the law is something that this organization have always fought for, but we have to have judges and a Supreme Court that honors the law. And right now we're seeing them doing all type of gymnastics to justify bad opinions.
It's shocking in a lot of ways. I mean, as we transition from that, I mean, as you go into the midterm, you are an organization of equal justice for all. It's not just one portion. As you look at candidates from any party, what do you hope to see from them as they talk about the midterms? What are the voices you want to hear come out, and what would you like to see people talking about? Like, what do we need to push to the fore?
You know, I'm in the middle of a book written by Abby Phillips concerning Jesse Jackson. And I love the part of the book where he began to recognize the plight of farmers. It was the same plight of individuals in inner cities, which was the same plight, you fill in the blank. And I think that's where we are right now. I think individuals who are seeking office must speak to the plight, the concerns, the fears of the constituencies that they're seeking to gain their vote. Don't be distracted by the othering and focus on the economic realities that people are confronted with now, and recognize that all the things that they were promised by this administration has now gone out the door. Inflation has gone up. The cost of things are going up. And as a result of his policies, not the prior administration, and if you speak to that, I think that would do a world of good in terms of getting voter interest.
I hear the same thing here. Is we aren't talking, like I said, when we mentioned that number, that number of paycheck to paycheck, 67%, that means it's transcending every line there is in America. That's a majority of Americans by far. Good luck getting 67% agree on anything, but the fact that the majority of us are truly living paycheck to paycheck at multiple economic levels. It's something I say a lot here, is like, we're all one cancer diagnosis away from losing our home. Most of us at this point, and that doesn't have color in it. That is just the American experience this moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it was fascinating. I was listening to a couple of months ago a farmer, and he talked about the negative impact of this administration, an administration he voted for. But he said, you know, they walked in the door and immediately cut USAID, which is the program that he was selling his subsidies to. And then after that, it was the scare of immigrants. And so he no longer had anyone to help cultivate what remaining crops he had, only to turn around and realize that the soybeans that was in his combine that he wanted to sell because of tariff, China wouldn't take it, to see then this country give with the $40 billion to Argentina, and then read that China is now buying the soybeans from Argentina. It's like, what gives here, right? That has nothing to do with DEI. It has nothing to do with immigrants. It has nothing to do with anything else, but we have an administration who doesn't care not about democracy, the Constitution, their own base. They only care about how they gain financially for themselves and a small few, while the rest of Americans are impacted.
I could say, but it's exactly it's what I see as I travel in my region and talk to folks who live here and the frustration they feel. I had a guest on a couple of years ago called the cold hard reality. And at some point, humans have cold hard reality hits us. And I think a lot of folks are facing the cold hard reality that their economic well-being is been dissipating for a long time, and now is absolutely evaporating in a lot of ways. And that's gonna affect all of us. I wanted to pivot briefly to another topic. As I was getting ready for the show, you guys put out a very strong statement about the idea that states, the administration and those many, frankly, both parties, there's both parties, many not wanting to limit AI, and that the fact that AI is specifically targeting children of color, especially. Can you tell me a little bit about why NAACP is taking such a strong stance on the allowing of regulation of AI and the damage it does?
So if you look at social media platforms, we recognize there are no guardrails. And so the spread of mis and disinformation is something that has really impacted not only the African-American children, but all children.
Also, right.
But when you
talk about government still a lot.
Yeah, when you put it on steroids with AI, which is now a super spreader, is very concerning. The misinformation will be amplified, bad data in, bad data repeated. The targeting of certain communities, African-American kids, is something that we're concerned about. It will really have a negative impact on their mental health and their habits in ways in which we should require regulatory oversight over these platforms. If we have regulatory oversights on radio and on television, which during the time people were concerned with the spread of mis and disinformation, why shouldn't we have the same thing in place for social media platforms and now the new technology of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And it is an issue. So I guess I want to let you guys, I know you're a busy man, especially today, but the most important, question I always ask folks in our world lately is, what's keeping you up at night? As I talk to people in my district and I wander the region and I say, hey, what's keeping you up at night? I had a gentleman the other day tell me, Fred, I've been working for 48 years and I can't retire. He was working at a convenience store, and we also have a flood of assaults on our rights. I can't imagine the tidal wave you face daily at the NAACP. Out of all of that, I guess for you, what do you see as what we call in the military the closest wolf? Like what is the thing that you see as the biggest danger as you look at the field of issues you're facing? What's the closest wolf for you right now, sir?
Whether or not we're going to actually have a true election next year, that they have trampled over so many guardrails. They don't care about the law, the rule of law, and whether or not we actually going to have an election next year. Secondly, what is the next big tragedy that's going to confront us to distract the American people? Are we going to unnecessarily go to war with Venezuela to take their oil or Nigeria, anywhere else, that would distract and distort what's really taking place? And then finally, will people who are actually being impacted be tricked and think that it's us versus us as Americans, and recognize it should be us for us as Americans to address the oligarch class that are stealing our democracy, our resources, and our freedoms?
Yeah, that's what we face. It really has become a very clear battle between those who want to kind of take away all our rights and benefits and our ability to even get out of poverty, our ability to climb what was called the American dream and how it's being ripped from so many of us. I think 50% of all consumer spending is being done by the top 10%, while the rest of us, I saw an interview with the president of McDonald's, the CEO of McDonald's said that they're seeing like it's a two-tiered economy, right? Where the well-off are doing great, but they see their average customer not even buying breakfast anymore. Their breakfast sales have gone down, which is for them a key indicator of working class people going to work and they're choosing not to eat McDonald's, for God's sakes. I mean, we are feeling, it almost feels like we're at a precipice, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, the level of food insecurity is off the chart. So, uh, but we have to make sure people understand who's doing it, why it's happening, and their agency, their power to change the dynamics.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, sir, I'm not going to keep you. Obviously, people can find out more information at NAACP.org. It's an easy one to find. And I really appreciate you taking time for me today and talking to Midas Mighty. Our audience really appreciates it. I guess the last question I always ask guests is, what can we do? What can those of us, couple 100,000 people who watch this show, what would you like to see us do to help you?
Continue to be a goalpost of truth and transparency. What you all have built with Midas Touch is amazing. I follow you. I appreciate the information I receive off the platform because we need more platforms like this where we can go get accurate information about all the things that's important to ensure that our democracy is working for all and the power each individual citizen have to change what we currently are witnessing.
That's perfect. Well, thank you so much, sir. Congratulations on the 70th anniversary. I hope you guys are at least take a moment to take a breath and appreciate the momentous times we live in. And thanks for the fight you're doing. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care.
What a show. I mean, and what a perfect place to finish. Look, we aren't facing a crisis of people of color or minorities or the lower class or the upper class. We are literally facing a moment in America where it's truly a precipice for working people. And when I say working people, I don't want you to envision the guy toiling away at a factory. I want you to envision the lady who's a janitor at your school. Working people is people like you and me. It's people in your nice neighborhood. It's people on a farm. It's people working every day in mines. One of the biggest things we have here in my region, my district is mining. Much of the glass that you have made for you comes from, believe it or not, Missouri sandstone, Missouri silica, some of the finest silica in the world, thanks to the Ozark Mountains. Believe it or not, that's a major issue. Those are the men and women toiling away in the mines. It is your neighbors, are working people. When 67% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, by God, we are all in this together. And if we don't start treating each other like that, if we don't act like we're all in this together, you notice I didn't say Republican or Democrat at this point. In my district where 60% of people passed the abortion amendment, the amendment for women's health choice, when even bigger number than that passed the paid sick leave amendment to our Constitution, we're no longer talking about a partisan fight. We're talking about people who deserve better from their nation and their country and their economy, and people who are taking it and grifting from it. So it was a pleasure to have a show where we have one of those fine people who has made his living, has profited from his work, giving back to the nation, spending his own money to make democracy more accessible for Americans. Kudos to Bradley Tusk. This is why I wanted to have him on, because this is how it looks if you give back. Okay, it shouldn't be about piling bigger layers of wealth. Then you see Mr. Johnson talk about the needs of working people, the needs of people of color, the needs of average Americans. That's on democracy for it. That's why I love this show. That's why I do this show. So for all of you who join us, thank you for being a part of this community. I can't thank you enough, but we have to fight. You heard Derrick Johnson say it. It's your voice. This is the power of this community we've built. It's your voice. It's you standing up. So when that candidate needs your help, and there are candidates in your district that need help. Look, even right now, a campaign I'm very close to, we are collecting volunteers quickly. We're putting them to work. We're doing the things we need to do because this community, the energy we're building, the energy you're building in your community matters. Start at home, folks. Look for ways you can help right there. Our democracy is based on the good old days when people went to their downtown. And unfortunately, it was most of the people that looked like me to argue and make an election, a vote right there. You've seen the old paintings to what it is today, which is hopefully you're sitting in traffic trying to get back from your good job, and you're able to vote on your phone for the person of choice, no matter who that be. That's where we need to be as a nation, and that's going to take all of us putting aside differences and getting to work. So with that, I'm Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy with FP Wellman every Friday night here on the Midas Touch Network. I hope you'll check out our Substack. We're putting a lot of good stuff out in the Substack. If you're looking for my other project, you can find information about my other project right there on the Substack. And I hope you'll support that as well. In the meantime, we are in the fight here, telling the story of the American Republic, telling the story of our democracy, and we need you in the fight. I can't wait to see you next week. Be sure to follow us everywhere. Watch the other Midas shows. support our sponsors. In the meantime, I'm Fred Wellman, and look, we're not done yet. We're still in the fight. I'll see you next week.